right, what's up, good people? It's your boys. We got a wild hair episode. We got myself, Thick Nick Fury, FBR for President, Fat Broken Rambo, and we're back on the Yellowjacket scene, man. Episodes 3 of season 3. There's a lot to unpack in this episode. It's kind of coming to a lot of realization. It's coming about with Coach Scott and everything. So it gets wild. I'm gonna turn it over to you, FBR, man. Take us into this show, man. This episode, man.
All right, bro, I got you, man. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us, and welcome to the party. We're going to talk some Yellow Jackets. All right, hey, full spoilers, man. That's how we're rolling on the show. So join us in the comments if you checked it out. If you're not, like our main man, Captain Jack, he's not listening to us right now because we're talking spoilers, and he's still stuck on episode 1, season 3. So catch up, Jack. Uh, so can't give him too much grief, man. He supports the hell out of us. So yeah, man. I thought I'd do something a little bit different this time because I realized last week one of the things that we failed to touch on was the cell phone that Shauna found, and that was the very end of episode 2. So what I'd like to do is just kind of take it through the modern timeline, and we'll talk that, and then we can talk the past timeline. And I'm kind of saving the past timeline because I think it's the better of the two this week. So
Yeah,
we're just
I agree. I
all
agree
right,
with
cool,
you.
man. So, current timeline kicks off. Shauna and Callie are still kind of like, oh, food the dishes, and so basically what ends up happening is there's a knock at the door, and in comes Lottie, and Jeff's like, oh, hell no, fuck no, please, God, just get out of my house. Like, poor Jeff, man. He's the only normal human being out of everybody, and he's got the plans. Just nobody listens to him. So. He's got a commitment with some hotel guys, some realtors that are trying to see if they want to buy his furniture for the hotel. He's got this meeting and he's stressing to Sean. He's like, "Hey, we can't leave Callie here with Lottie. We got this dinner." So lo and behold, who's world's worst babysitter gets called is Misty, right? Misty shows up and shenanigans ensue. They drug Misty with rum, milk, and some medication, knock her ass out. I don't know who drinks rum milk, but I don't know, man.
Hey.
That just sounds kind of weird to me. Maybe it's a thing. I do like White Russians, so who knows? Um, but yeah, man. And then what we end up seeing is like this bonding thing between Lottie and Callie, and it starts to get a little unnerving. Um, Shauna's got the meltdown with the two realtor bros. Basically, he's like, you're not good enough to have my husband's furniture after they kind of ridicule him for not being like trendy or hip. They try to pass themselves off as something special, and they're not.
Hmm.
Which was a great show, a great scene. Jeff's just like, yeah, that's my wife, and just gets out of the booth and just like, fuck it,
That's it. I
went
lost.
out fighting, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, man, the next scene kind of progresses where Shauna's getting yelling at Misty, because she passed out and she's worthless ass babysitter. And then the next, Misty drives home completely inebriated, and Walter kind of like lays into her, and then she lashes out. He is a target of opportunity for her rage because of Nat, and everything else like that, and it kind of spirals from there. Um, if Walter wasn't what I believe to be as a homicidal maniac, you feel really bad for the guy because he is the punching bag for her right now, and he's taking it because he loves her. He's trying to hopefully kind of wake her out of or get her out of her grief. It's just not going well for him. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, Lottie takes Callie shoplifting, so that was kind of cool. $1,500
Right.
dress, and probably one of the better scenes of this week's current timeline is the showdown between Shauna and Lottie in the kitchen, man. And Callie's in there, and they're kind of throwing back some wine, acting like they're back in high school kind of thing with Callie. And Shauna walks in, man, and she's already on her guard. She already doesn't want Lottie in the house. Definitely doesn't want her interacting with her daughter, who she thinks has this like connection to the wilderness. And then, dude, all hell breaks loose. She sees the necklace, and this is where this actress shines, man. Melanie, man, I can never pronounce her last name. Uh,
Lewinsky or something. Not,
Malinsky.
not Lewinsky.
Yeah, Rose from Two and a Half
Not
Men.
Monica.
Um, anyways, she shines, man. This is the first time you truly see like adult Shauna's rage. And as an actress, you get to see the full range, man. She kind of comes in like calm and I wouldn't say docile, but like you don't see the aggression in Shauna right away, and it's a slow creep. And when it shows up, you're just like, oh damn. And she lost her fucking collective mind on Lottie, and rightfully so, man. We all know that necklace represents, like kind of like the mark of death,
Right.
as far as so far in the show. And yeah, man.
Dude. Now the whole Lottie thing is I'm still kind of trying to wrap my mind about
Yep.
where she is, right? Because she showed up like she had nowhere else to go, right? But
Right.
she also looks like she's doing pretty well. Like she's put
Yeah.
together. she's out shopping, so it's not like you're hiding from anyone. You're not like, well, I don't want them to see me. So you mean to tell me you can't find anywhere else to go? That seems like a little bit of a, I don't believe you. And now she's kind of getting her hooks in the Cali a little bit. And I think that's what Shauna's concerned about because like now you're spending all this time with Lottie and she's going to manipulate you, manipulate her the way she did the girls back in the forest.
Yeah.
So definitely Shauna's trying to get in front of that train because we all know where that leads to. And that I think also leads to her rage because she knows how Lottie is, how and even today is still manipulating her, even though she quote unquote is in need of her help.
Yep.
So Lottie's got something else going on, man, and I think it might be a little bit more sinister than I just need a place to go. And this is the only place I can think of when you know you can go crash at Misty's house because she accepts everything.
Oh, she's definitely plotting, man. She's been plotting since she saw Callie in the woodline in like the finale of season two. Like she's like, oh man, like the wilderness connection, right? And it's funny because in the last couple episodes where we see her experimenting with what I'm assuming is hallucinogenics like mushrooms with Travis, is that she needs it, man. She needs to have that kind of connection. And obviously she had her little purple cult people too. So she's good, man. She's a manipulator. And
Grade A, grade
what's
A.
interesting is she a true believer or is this is just the life that she has now? But I mean, her parents were loaded, so I mean, like at some point, she's got money to fall back on. I absolutely am. I'm with you, man. She's got some nefarious motivations behind that showing up at the doorstep like she did.
Yeah, 100%. And then the whole scene with, like Misty showing up, at Shauna's, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we can do a besties day out." And
Yeah,
Shauna's like, "I have like a podiatrist appointment." She's like, "Oh, cool. I'll wait in the waiting room." It's like, oh my God. Like she's that girl that will not get the hint, and I think she's trying to kind of fight against what Walter was saying was like they only call you when they need you. They're not really your friends, and she's trying to prove him wrong by saying, "Oh no." Like we can hang out, we do, girlfriend things, and they really don't. And it kind of shows in this scene where, they're out
does,
together
yeah.
and like Sean is trying to do everything to kind of get away from her. She's like, why did you have to bring me out here to tell me that? Like you don't even really have anything to tell me. And now we got to go to dinner. Now I have to spend time with you. And she's trying to get out of it. So now the whole thing with the brakes in the minivan, I don't know where the
Oh man, I was gonna
I
get
don't
there.
think that was
Yeah.
Misty. Yeah, I don't think that
No,
was
it's
Misty.
not. It's definitely
Right.
Walter. I don't think Walter foresaw Misty getting in the
Being in
van.
the van.
That was the thing because like he's articulated to her countless times, like she only gets called when they need her.
Right.
Um, and that's gonna be interesting because you saw the fracture there, man. Like she shatters the picture and then sets it on fire. So like, man, if Misty is truly on the outs with the rest of the Yellow Jackets, it might be hell to pay for the rest of them because she's more than capable.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
she's already unhinged. She's been
yeah.
unhinged since they crashed the plane. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, and then we get to Ty and Van in the current timeline as well. So, hey, surprise, surprise. Uh, Van doesn't have, or it's not that she doesn't have cancer. The cancer has stopped spreading. So there's positive movement on that.
right.
Um,
And they're trying to say it's because of the entity, I guess. Like you make a sacrifice and then something, like
yeah,
in place of, yeah. So I
yeah.
don't know
And
about
then
that.
so in theory, if that was the wilderness reaching out, then it shows somebody. It shows the waiter. So the waiter potentially is the one that cleared the way for Van to kind of come out of this, less scathed.
Right,
Whereas like at the end when Nat died, her sacrifice in the wilderness came back and potentially cleaned up the old Adam fiasco, and
right.
made everything go away. But we don't even know if that storyline's dead yet. I suspect it probably isn't. And I think that's pretty much where the current timeline of 2021 ends. I think it's 21.
Yeah, I do have like one of the things I'm kind of stood out to me a little bit with Thaisa, right? This is not just a nobody. Like she was running for public office.
She was
And
elected.
she
She was a senator.
Right. So she essentially disappeared off the grid. Like she hasn't seen her wife or kid in how
Nope.
long? And it's like,
At least 6 weeks because
right.
that's
It's
the
almost
time
like they
jump.
don't even exist. Like we're not even mentioning like, oh, they're looking for you. They care about where you are. Like nothing. So I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing with that? Because
Well,
the wife
they've
was
only
in the
met.
accident. She was in the hospital, right?
Right. But the only thing that we've seen as far as Ty's wife is I think a quick phone call, like she wanted to talk to Sammy and then she wouldn't put her on the phone with her and she's like, he's my son too, kind of thing. And then
Right.
the phone call just kind of ends and she storms into Van's room. And
Okay. So it's like going, I'm just in a strange relationship, and she's just kind of
I think there's
taking
still
it as
something coming back around with that storyline. I don't see that going away. And then,
right.
we do figure out that the man with no eyes is actually a character from a television ice cream commercial that
It's the
Ty was
creepiest
familiar
thing
with.
ever.
Hell yeah, it's fucking nightmare fuel, man.
Oh, what that damn ice
Um,
cream?
and I want to get back to that because my wife and I went over some of the stuff that we saw, kind of putting my notes together for this episode, and it's some pretty interesting things because now we know that Van has seen the man with no eyes before, and has she ever mentioned that to Ty?
Right.
And
Yeah.
actually now three total actually have seen the man with no eyes. Or I'm sorry, Ty plus the three from the hallucinations we'll get to in the past timeline. And if you're ready, man, we can dive back into that because that's
Yeah.
where the action's at this
Oh
episode.
yeah. Absolutely. Let's go. Let's
Yeah,
get
man.
back in the
So
time machine.
we kick it off with my main man, Coach Ben Scott, man. Still only has one leg, but hey, he
Still
grows on you.
kicking
What
it.
can I say? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's kicking it. So him and Mari, man, they're in the caves, eating bats. That doesn't pose any problems, I'm sure. Um, in the conversations they have, they allude to Coach Scott and his background, tore ACL, substitute teacher, paying off student debts, that kind of thing. And he's kind of having like a mental break, so to speak. And he's like, I don't even understand how this is happening. And then Mari goes into this really interesting kind of like expose talking about her little cousin that
Sister.
passed away from like, is his sister?
Cancer. Yeah.
Yeah, that had cancer and passed away. And then
Hmm.
she goes into like this little discussion about alternate realities. Like there's the dark reality and the light reality, I believe it was how she framed it,
Hmm.
meaning the dark reality is always prepared to kind of intercede or interact and cross over the good reality. And this is now we're in their version of the bad reality. So I don't know, man, because we'll get to the questions on that scene because it'll be explained probably by the end, at least a little bit. But they're both kind of like cross, Ben is hearing really weird shit. And I know some of the comments I saw on Reddit and other places alluded to it might be the bats that he's obviously eating. But man, there's like a distinct like predator vibe off the noise that he specifically hears. And I say that because Mari doesn't show any kind of reaction to the
Reaction.
noise, and
Right.
she goes right and she segues right into that conversation. It's just kind of strange. Um, and then obviously Ben's like, "Hey, this isn't who I am," and he's like, "What am I doing?" And not before Mari tries to seduce him,
That was hilarious.
which
Oh, she tried. She went to the book. She went right to the book.
oh my god, it was hilarious too because he's like, "I'm gay," and then you can just see like her ego just deflate, like something's like, "Well, there goes my master plan."
Right.
So Ben eventually comes around. And he's like, "Dude, this isn't who I am. You're free to go." And not before a smidge of hesitation in that blade, where I thought maybe I was like, man, I think he might do it. No, he
Mm.
didn't, which is good because I'm rooting for Ben, man. I don't know he's got long for this world, but I'm rooting for him.
Right.
Um, and then so Mari makes her way back to camp and then rallies the troops, and then they basically break off into a hunting party and they go looking for Ben. So Mari brings them back to the cave system, and then they hear the screams again, the squeal, the tree screaming or whatever the
Right.
fandom's calling it right now. I'm still not
And
writing off.
everyone hears it. Yeah, everyone hears
Yeah,
it.
and that's what's interesting because prior to that, Lottie is trying to drug Travis again, and he's just like, "No, I'm hip to your game. I ain't playing that." And basically, he passes it off to Aquila, man. The poor girl. She's just trying to raise rabbits and shit. And her main man, the duck. Oh, damn, Mordecai? No, Mortimer.
Uh-huh.
Mortimer.
Right.
Um, and just tries to pass the buck to her, and no one's taking Lottie's stuff very seriously. So you're starting to see the fracture a little bit amongst the group. So you got the true believers, and then you got folks that kind of side more with like Shauna.
Hmm.
Melissa is definitely the single white female of the group. Um, and I still think that she is the silhouette. I think she's Hillary Swank, the silhouette that we've seen in episodes 1 and 2, dropping off the evidence tape to Shauna's house. But yeah, the fractures is coming, and they get to the caves, man. They go in with some lanterns.
Dude, I gotta say, first of all, it's impressive, right? Well, to go back even a little further, when when she maced Coach Scott with the bear mace,
Mm, yeah,
and and
totally
so
forgot.
basically they both get maced, right? It's just hilarious and rolling around like screaming at each other. And then he's like, "Well, what was your plan? You're still tied up." Right. So she was like, "Well, I really didn't have a plan." And then later on, when they get into the fact that he has her captive, she's like, "Well, you asked me what my plan was. What's your plan?" And he had to think like, well, wow, what do I really do with her? Do I keep her forever? Do I kill her? And he
Yeah.
decided to let her go, right? So what was impressive also was she was blindfolded on the way to the cave, got out, was able to get back home, and then literally navigate back to the site in the dark. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in the woods at night. It's almost impossible to get any type of reference of where you are. Maybe you followed in the stars, or maybe there's a path, but that was actually very uh like almost senior like tracking level. Like, okay, I can get right back to where I was. I remembered everything, and I was injured. So I was like, okay, how far away was this cave? Like, how easily was it? Maybe it was just like one of those, it's not far, but it's hidden kind of well. I don't know,
Yep.
but needless to say, they all made it back, and now they're going down in these caves, and I guess there's a gas, right? So that's where the dream sequence starts, and I'm like, okay, this better be a dream because this looks like it's getting extraterrestrial. And it turns out, like, yeah, there's a dream, but the weird part of it was when they all get into the same dream. Now I'm like, okay, I need
Mm.
to know. I need
I've
to
got,
know what this means because you don't share dreams. Yeah,
I've got some thoughts, man, because
got some thought. Okay,
once
yeah,
again,
the talking
deep
llama.
dived on this scene. Yeah. Okay. So, couple
I will
things. I
get
need to
off.
set the stage, man, because I absolutely love the scene, right? So, like, for every time I said about season two, where like the fake snow and the soundstage kind of vibe ruined the immersion for me, dude, they completely knocked it out of the park with the scene. I don't like small spaces. Very few people do. But if you've ever seen The Descent, that is
Oh
probably one
yeah,
of the most anxiety-inducing movies I've ever seen, and that's before the fucking monsters show up.
yep.
Um, this scene captured that beautifully, man, because it's subtle touches like it didn't occur to me that I was like, oh yeah, they're lanterns. Oh yeah, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, the condensation off one of the rocks hits the lantern and puts it out. And I was like, oh shit, man, you're in a bad fucking spot, bro. And I was like, it's about to get really interesting in here. And I was
Right.
like, no, dude,
No
I'd be
light
coveting.
source.
No, my ass would be
Oh.
gone, man, and be back where I was going. That shit ain't happening. I ain't fumble fucking around in the dark in a cave. Hell no. But I loved it, man, because it just worked beautifully. And yes. So I'm not gonna call it a dream because I think it's a hallucination. But that's just my opinion. I loved it, man. And so if any of you guys caught it in the narrative that I typed up this week, I referenced Captain Planet. So Earth, Wind, Fire, Water, right? And that those four rings form Captain Planet, the Planeteers, blah blah blah, all that bullshit from the '80s cartoon about saving the environment.
Yes. Bringing it
So
back.
what was interesting about it is that so Aquila has a connection with animals, and that's why she gets to talk to either a llama or an alpaca. Not really sure which. Couldn't tell you what the difference is, even if you put a gun in my face.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a llama. I only know because I have closed captioning on because I can't hear.
oh, sweet. There you go.
Yeah.
It's a llama. Yay.
And it didn't have a name, so it wasn't like Ben the llama. It was just llama.
Oh, hey man, sometimes closed captioning does give away some of those
It
tips.
does. It really
Um,
does.
the so yeah, so she's got the connection with the animals, and when her her hallucination sequence goes south, she gets pulled into the earth. So she's Earth. We're gonna talk about Van last. Shauna has that absolutely fucking heartbreaking sequence where she's swimming, trying to get to shore, and she's not moving to get to her son, who's slightly older.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just a man. That young actress deserves a fucking award, man. Like you award people out there, like do this woman a solid
Right.
because she
I mean,
deserves it, especially after last season, let alone this season. She's knocking it out of the park. Um, the like the trauma of watching her do that was just brutal, man. And then she gets pulled down under the water, right? So water.
the water. Hmm.
Let's get to Van though, because Van's is probably the most interesting to dissect because I've watched the scene. I watched the episode three times and I dissected to see, frame by frame a little bit because that's the degree of nerdery I'm at on this show. So Van's sitting inside of Cabin Daddy's cabin. That's what the Phantom calls him. It's not like a personal nickname. And she's in the fireplace, right? Or she's by the fireplace. Just and then all of a sudden, the fucking fire spreads. And now she has transitioned from the chair that she was in to the actual seat of an airplane.
Hmm.
And
Over
you'll
in the
notice
crash.
that she tries to get out, right? And then she's stuck, just like she was when the plane crashed. Not to mention and then we'll talk about the combined sequence at the end because then that gets weird too. But Van is once again touching fire. So she had the fire in the plane, the fire in the when they thought she was dead by the wolves, the funeral pyre, and then we also had the fire in the cabin. So fire, right? So all we have to ask ourselves is who's wind, and is this the route we're going down? And I would say that we probably are. Um, then they all kind of combine together and you're not really sure whose hallucination they're in. And they actually even like kind of like talk to one another because they're back in high school and Jackie's there.
Hmm.
Something to do with that snap bracelet, man. I can't figure it out what it is. Definitely a point of discussion. If anybody in the chat knows what the fucking slap bracelet reference means, I'm all ears, man. I suspect some of that might have been a little bit foreshadowing. I'm interested to see if Van gets a cut on her forearm. So if she gets a cut on her forearm, then I'm assuming that Shauna's going to die by laceration of the throat. Um, but I don't know.
Mm,
So
yeah, it definitely meant something because it affected each one of them differently.
right,
Like Akila it had no effect on, like Van had a slight cut on the arm. Shauna it killed her. So it might be referencing something where, you
yeah,
know, this is a dangerous aspect to one of you. One of you is gonna actually where it won't affect anyone else that much. It will affect that
yep.
one person to the point where they're to their detriment, to their demise. So it's interesting to see what that will represent, like you're saying. But they did reference each other in that hallucination or the dream. Like, are you
Yeah.
guys in the same dream? So I'm like, okay, well, now where are we going with that? Like, how do
So
you get to that point?
well, the other thing that was interesting about that sequence too was, man, for Aquila, right? So
Mm,
Lottie is the teacher, the head of class. She writes that quote on the board.
right,
But what was interesting was that she looks at Aquila and she's like, if you don't, you have to save her because she's
mm,
the one that saves us. Something along those lines. I'm
right,
paraphrasing,
right,
but it alludes to that if she, oh, that's what it was. She said that if Shauna dies, we all die. So that alludes to the fact that maybe Shauna is going to be the one that triggers the rescue, finds the rescue, something that Shauna is going to be she is going to be the contributing member of Rescue.
right.
And Archibald Redrick in our comments pulled out something that I thought about earlier too. Um, the arms that pull Van down, freeze frame them because it's interesting. Uh, you got three arms, three different bodies. I look at it. You have one on our left, our lower left is kind of like waterlogged. Looks like it's a hoodie, because the long sleeve with the cuffed link or cuffed sleeve.
Hmm.
The other one's wearing plaid, and then the third is wearing and it's a man's arm or a very hairy woman, but I'm assuming it's cabin daddy. Um, and the third is a yellow jacket. So if you look at those from that perspective, maybe it's the curse of the cabin trying to like pull her down so that the waterlog is Javi, the plaid is cabin daddy, and the yellow jacket is obviously Jackie.
Interesting. Okay,
Yep.
okay.
So
Hey, I like that theory.
yeah, man, it's interesting, and I got some more. We'll talk about it when we conclude the roll up of this week's episode. But I think we're pretty much there. The only thing we got now is, hey, man, Coach Scott once again saved the motherfucking day, and I think they're gonna hold it against him in the next episode. But yeah, he is the one that actually, when Shauna is choking from the snap bracelet and bleeding, she's pulled out of hallucination by Coach Scott, who's like, "You got to get her out of here. It's poison." Blah blah
Right.
blah.
But he saved all
And
three of them.
he did, but is anyone going to get the credit for it? That's the thing.
They
Like,
have to.
so, bull.
They
All right.
have
So,
to, bro. Like he lets Marie go, and now he pulls the three girls away from the poisonous gas. If he wanted to kill them, he would have killed them, right?
right.
He would have stabbed Marie, and he would let the girl die in the poison gas. So if the girls who are extremely intelligent, from what I've seen so far, can't put those two things together, then what are we really talking about? That means someone's trying to cover up what they've done. So whoever burned the cabin down, like, oh yeah, it was Coach Scott.
Mm,
She's the one that needs to
mm.
die. So we got to think about who's really calling for that death.
We're going to talk about that because I have a theory.
Okay, lovely.
If you're good, then we'll move into theories because I've got some notes.
Well, go for it, bro.
All right, man. Let's see what I got. All right, this week. All right. We talked about the weight year being the significance for Van's cancer going away potentially. Melissa is the silhouette. I'm a firm believer. Um, Curious to see what ramifications would look like for somebody eating cooked bat, considering that bats carry rabies.
Hmm.
Um,
And why are they eating bat when they had the resources in the pit?
so that was kind of interesting too. Like, I don't, maybe he was doing that to, I could see him doing that in order to safeguard his resources because potentially, there's a chance that they didn't discover his resources because he's active. Like, so the group splits, right? And they're actively, um, the two groups of ladies are going down various rabbit holes, but we don't see them actually discover his like quote unquote lair. They just happen to take a route that led them into this potentially toxic these toxic fumes, which I'm assuming are chemicals, um, probably from the mine. I'm assuming
Hmm.
it's a mine.
Okay. All right.
So the one thing that we did fail to cover in the I'm not gonna call it no, the joint hallucination is what I'm gonna call that. They all three of them saw the man with no eyes. So
Okay.
now, including Ty, you have four people that have seen this image, and I'm curious if that information is going to get shared with anyone, because Ty definitely hasn't, as far as I know, hasn't shared that information with anyone until
Except band.
this episode now when she talks about it with Van.
Right. Okay.
So to go back to the phone real quick from the last episode, the point I didn't make was the song that was playing was the Queen of Hearts. If you go into the lyrics of that song, it's very interesting that that song was chosen, and I suspect it's Melissa's love song to Shauna and reminding her of who she is to her. Um, I'm just kind of taking that at its whim, but like the lyrics kind of alluded to like a romance and don't trust the Queen of Hearts. Um,
Okay. Well, isn't it also in reference to the card game that they had to draw?
Absolutely, yep,
Right. Okay.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
because the Queen of Hearts is usually the one that's chosen for the to be hunted.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, so we talked about my Captain Planet theory. Oh, okay. So here's the final theory I've got. The final theory is that it's either going to be Ty's darker personality or Van that set the fire to the back door of the cabin.
Of the cabin.
All right,
Okay.
and okay. So here's where it's at. So if you go back to episode 9, you watch it scene by scene, right? So at this point, in the beginning of season 2, Ty and Van are sleeping upstairs. Van is tied off to Ty, and that's where we encounter Dark Ty's persona, and Van encounters her for the first time by the cliff, right when she kind of breaks free of the rope. When Shauna loses the baby and beats the living shit out of Lottie, Lottie is now moved upstairs and Misty is like taking care of her. And that's where Misty kind of bucks up to Mari about the piss jar or the piss pan.
Hmm.
And then after that, you get to episode 9. Now it's Shauna living up there. And she's journaling. So the fire breaks out. Shauna is actually only the one awake in the cabin, and she smells the smoke, comes downstairs, tries to wake him up, grabs all the shit, and then you almost have to pause frame by frame to do a head count real quick of characters. And you're like, that's blah, blah, blah. And what's interesting is so Natalie initially goes to the front door to start kicking it open. Ty and Van are already at the back door. The first frame of the back door is Ty saying that the door's already blocked. And if you pan down and pause real quick, you'll notice the fire is actually up underneath the bottom of the door, so that I'm not a fire marshal, and if there's a fire marshal or a crime scene investigator in the audience, please chime in. We would love your expertise. But it looks like that point of origination kind of came there because that was naturally creeping in. It had to have been on the backside of it. So here's my theory: is either Dark Tie goes out and Van is aware of what happens, and they run back inside and try to cover each other,
Hmm.
or Van herself is the one that initiates it.
Okay.
And
I
I
like
think it'll
that.
be telling. There's no mistaking the reference to 12 Angry Men in next week's title. So 12 Angry Men is about a criminal case, and it's all about the trials and tribulations of the actual the jury themselves. So I think we're going to see something similar moving next week. And honestly, man, if you ain't got nothing else, we can roll into the trailer and see what we think.
Yeah. Just on a side note, real quick. I want to say everyone's teeth is holding up very well. Um,
Sweet gum.
watching Coach Scott and Marie get into that bat, like, wow, okay, no one's having any dental issues. That's great. I always go back to Castaway with,
Oh
with
man.
when having to take that tooth out with that skate. And I'm like, man, I just okay. But that's it. That's my little segue. But yeah, man, let's get into this trailer, man. Let's see what's happening next week.
Yeah, man.
What do we have to look forward to?
That's our hand arm signal to Jack. He doesn't want to listen because he's actively watching the show. We don't want to spoil it for him.
Going on bathroom break.
We have to make him pay for trying to kill us.
That's right. Life and death has always been for it to decide.
He's not one of us.
I'm sticking my neck out for you. Do not make me look stupid.
I need more time with you.
But not like this. Someone's trying to hurt you for what you did.
I can take it.
You never could.
Okay, so it looks like there's some, like I said, a court is in session.
Yep.
And it sucks when the entire jury's mad at you. But good luck, coach.
But yet he saved over half of them. That's
Right,
the thing.
but, yeah.
So I mean,
Stop bringing up old shit.
I know, right? Move on with your life. I think this is going to be the catalyst to where they all have to sign the pact to not talk about the wilderness. They kind of come up with their standing line. I think they're going to kill Ben. Unfortunately, because I was kind of rooting for him to survive and be like the blackmailer on the end of, or not the blackmailer, but the guy sending the postcards. So that's kind of bummed about that. But maybe he's going to make it out, man. Who knows? But he's the only one out of the group that hasn't eaten anybody. So I'm saying he's got something. They have a reason. They have a reason to silence him.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting, man. Like I said, I think Coach Scott has done the best he could to get the situation that he's in. Travis made it out. He didn't survive long after, in the new timeline, but he did make it out of the forest. So yeah, we don't know. We haven't seen a Coach Scott in the current timeline, so it is interesting. And that's the beauty of the show, because you really don't know who actually did make it back outside of the core, characters that we follow in the current timeline. But we can always bring out one of those old, like Melissa, like I'm sure we'll see Melissa, like you're saying, Hillary Swank's possible, her character, which I agree. Marie, like we haven't seen her character, we haven't seen Akila's character in the current timeline. So it's interesting, man. It could definitely it leads a lot to the story, and I like it. I like where it's going.
There's still the rumor of a third timeline too, a post-rescue timeline where the young actresses will still play their characters, and there's might be an incident where they have to silence one of their own post-rescue, which I think that might be an interesting way to kind of thin the herd, so to speak.
The transition, actually, good point. The transition from that traumatic experience as youngsters to adulthood. I'm pretty sure there's some rough waters in between. So yeah. And
then the final thought I had was, at the end of the day, man, as the universe has told us in this story, the wilderness picks, right? So like they might find Coach Ben's fucking actions, against them, and they might option to hunt him out, and they could lose somebody they're not even anticipating, because the wilderness chooses according to them, right? So
that's
like
true.
Shit, man, anything's possible.
Absolutely. I like it.
All right. Well, that's what we got, man, for you guys this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode review and the spoiler discussion and the theories, man. So hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think. We'll be back at it again next week with episode 4. And can't wait, man. Fucking jazz. I love this show. So till next time, FatBrokenRambo out here.
All right. Thick Nick Fury. See you guys next time.